Hello, everyone. I think I have this working. If you have any issues while we're getting set up, just let me know in the chat box on the right-hand side. I'm just going to make sure that Tony's hardware is working as well. Just inviting Tony to the broadcast here. Hi, Tony. How are you?
Hi, good, thanks. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can.
Awesome.
Yeah. Just going to wait a couple minutes here just to make sure everyone is signed on.
Awesome. How many people are we expecting?
We are expecting about 60.
Oh, wow. Okay. Quite a few.
Yeah. You turned off your video, I didn't, right?
Correct, yes.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no. I am sleep deprived and I'm sitting in a crappy meeting room right now.
Me too. I think most of the viewers will be as well.
Yeah.
I just have my mic turned off for now.
Okay. Hey, Kelsey. I had to install the screen share extension. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
So I think while I'm speaking, I'm going to mute your mic, and then while you're speaking, I'm going to mute my mic, just in case there's any sound going on in our rooms and stuff.
Yes. Okay, makes sense.
I see a question from Michelle. She's asking about where she can get the recorded version of the webinar. I'm going to actually talk about that at the end of the webinar so everyone knows where to access it. But when we're done here, I'll send out an email with a quick survey to make sure everything works for everyone. And to all the people that filled out the survey, I'll give them the link. Okay, I think we're going to get started now.
Awesome, I'm here.
Okay, I see some comments asking about my muted mic. I had it muted, so I was just getting ready, but now you should be able to hear me. If you can't hear me, let me know. And you can. Sounds good. Okay, I think we'll get started. I'm just gonna share my screen. This is always a challenge. So, Tony, I'm just going to mute you for now while I get my presentation up.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. So you're going to see all of my notes here, but I think that's okay. You just want to focus on the screen to the left. And if you have any questions or concerns while I'm presenting, just put it in the chat box on the right for now. So hello, thank you for joining us. This is our 5th official ODX webinar. Last month we had Roy Firestein from Simon join us, talking about cybersecurity. In December, we had Brian Smith from Think DataWorks, and before that, we had Devin Tu from Map Your Property. If this is your first time here, welcome. We host these every month to month and a half. If you would like to speak at one of our future webinars, or you know a topic that you'd like to suggest, please reach out to me, and I'll love to chat with you about that. We have some exciting things happening at ODX in the coming months. We are moving to a new home in the spring. So along with our new home is coming a new set of webinars and lunch and learns that'll be in person at the Data Hub. We're gonna be sending out more information about that shortly, so keep your eyes and ears open for that. So I'm just gonna give you a quick overview of how today's webinar is gonna go. First, I'll introduce ODX and why we host these webinars. Then I'll turn things over to Tony, and he'll talk about Miovision Labs. After Tony's presentation, we'll have a Q&A session, which I'll moderate for Tony. And at the end, we'll have our closing remarks, where I'll explain where you can get the recorded version of this webinar if you're interested, and how you can sign up for our next one. So before we get too far, I wanted to explain how Crowdcast works for anyone who's new. Just underneath the broadcast, you'll see a tab that says questions and answers. If you click on that, you can type any questions you have for Tony during his presentation. And we will moderate those questions, like I said, after his presentation is finished. So just place them there, and people can vote on them and comment on them if they have further questions related to your question. But if you have questions or concerns about the audio or the video or any other comments, just put that in the chat box on the right-hand side here. And officially, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Kelsey. My official title is the Digital Marketing Coordinator for ODX. I'm responsible for marketing these webinars to you guys, and as well as our monthly newsletter, and I manage our social media as well. If you have any events in the open data or open government space, please reach out to me. You can see my email there. It's kelsey.veer@codx.ca. We'd love to promote your events in our webinars and newsletters. And as I said before, if you're interested in hosting one of these webinars, please reach out to me so we can discuss. We are looking for speakers for April and beyond. And with me today, I have Tyler Jacks. He just started working with us a couple weeks ago, and we're thrilled to have him on board. You'll be seeing his face around in the coming months. Tyler?
Hey, everybody. So my name's Tyler. I've come on as the community manager and market analyst. What that means is I'll be helping companies find and locate data and helping people use the data, as well as doing some interesting research and analysis projects on the side. I'll likely be facilitating these in the future, so you'll hear from me, but I'll throw it back to Kelsey to continue this.
Awesome, thank you. So a little bit about ODX before we pass it on to Tony. We're a public-private partnership housed at Communitech with a mission to support the creation of companies, jobs, and wealth across Canada through the commercial use of open data. That's our mission statement, and that's why we host these webinars. We want to show examples of how companies are monetizing open data to help you realize potential opportunities within your company and help those come to life. We have a number of programs, including OD 150 and ODX Ventures, which I'm sure you've heard about lately. There's been a lot of buzz about those in the media. But the purpose of those are to support companies along their journey using open data for monetization. We also have connections with various levels of government where we raise concerns about the data sets they already have opened and data sets they're planning to open in the future. So today we have Tony from Miovision here. He's going to talk about Miovision Labs and how the Miovision platform leverages open data. So I'm just going to let Tony introduce himself, but before he does, I need to set up his screen share. Tony, I'm unmuting you now.
Perfect, thanks.
And actually, Can you share your screen, or do I have to do that from my side?
I don't think I have the ability to share. Oh, maybe. Screen share? Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Application window. Okay.
Okay. Now I'm going to focus the screen so that all we see is your presentation. And I'll mute my mic.
Okay, how's that?
It looks great, Tony.
Perfect. And you can hear me fine?
We can hear you, and I'm just going to mute myself, okay?
Okay, awesome. So thank you, everyone, for joining us on this webinar. As Kelsey said, my name is Tony Brijpaul. I'm one of the co-founders of Miovision. And today, my talk is around the data set that Miovision has and how we are leveraging that data set through a new initiative called Miovision Labs to improve traffic and transportation networks. So the title of the presentation today is Making Sense of 236 Trillion Measurements, how Miovision is using large amounts of IoT data. So first question is why is Miovision so interested in traffic data, and then an initiative called Miovision Labs? So why are we interested in Miovision Labs and innovating in the traffic industry? And the biggest reason is because of this statistic here. So 66% of the world's population will be living in urban centers or cities by 2050. And so you can see from the stat that there's going to be a tremendous amount of stress put on city infrastructure, and specifically traffic networks. So we started asking ourselves, well, we need a smarter approach to traffic. And from Miovision, this is something that we're keenly interested in, and we have a lot of aptitude and expertise in this area. So we created Miovision Labs specifically with the purpose of developing next generation traffic technology. But we also decided that, okay, well, it's gonna be the innovation arm of Miovision, and we're gonna leverage our expertise and our data to solve some of the more difficult challenges facing cities today. And further along in my presentation, I'll discuss a few initiatives in a little bit more detail of what it is, some initiatives that we're working on in some more detail. So where does our data set come from? So we've got a ton of traffic data. And where does it come from? What kind of data is it? So the first thing I want to do is introduce you to the Scout device. And this is our first product that we released to market. And Scout is a portable camera. And what it's used for is short duration traffic counts. So you can imagine setting this device up at an intersection, recording peak hour traffic throughout the day, so morning, noon, and evening peaks. Say about 6, moving it to a different intersection to collect a different set of data. And that's how our customers use it. They move it around, they collect video, they upload that video, and then they can receive traffic counts from the video. Currently, there's around 10,000 of these devices in the field globally. We have customers throughout the globe. North America and Europe are our biggest areas. And so these devices are generating a lot of traffic data, both. So Spectrum, in contrast to the Scout device, Spectrum is a permanently installed device at a traffic light on the presentation on what the installation looks like. And so Spectrum collects data 24/7, 365 days a year in real time. So it's constantly generating traffic data. It's kind of like a router for a traffic light, so it provides two big benefits. One, it provides wireless connectivity to the traffic light, and two, it does all sorts of data collection. And what kinds of data does it collect? So you can imagine a traffic light going from red to green. That transition would be captured by Spectrum. A pedestrian walks up to an intersection and pushes the pedestrian call button. That data would be captured by Spectrum. And even the number of vehicles that drive through the intersection is also captured by Spectrum. So the data that's generated from those two devices, roughly, we did some fancy math and we came up with the number 236 trillion measurements, and the raw measurements being
Tony, I'm gonna have to stop you. I think there's an issue with your audio. It seems to be cutting in and out, and I can't hear you right now.
traffic video. Sorry?
Your audio's cutting in and out.
Oh, okay. How's this?
It seems to be working now. It just cut out again. I'm wondering if it's your internet connection. I can't hear you. Tony, if you try refreshing your browser, maybe, I wonder if that will work. I think Tony's just getting reconnected here. Tony, I just sent you an invitation to come on screen. Sorry for these technical difficulties. We just have to figure out why Tony's connection isn't working.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I don't know what happened. I plugged in to a network cable instead of going on the wire.
Awesome. Just need you to re-share your screen again so you can continue the presentation.
And I can go back a few slides. I don't know.
Okay. Awesome.
Can you give me a sense of where I should start, Kelsey?
Is this the first slide here?
This is the first slide.
I would say maybe the third slide.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. So sorry about that. Some technical difficulties. Let's try that again. So just moving back a few slides, Miovision realized that we need a smarter approach to traffic. And so part of what we decided to do was create an innovation arm called Miovision Labs, whose job or role is to develop the next generation of traffic technology for smart cities. But what we also realized was that we could leverage our expertise and our data set to solve some of the more challenging problems facing cities in the future. Well, excuse me, now and into the future. And we'll talk about a few of those examples later on in the presentation. So where does our data come from? Let me introduce you to the first device that we brought to market. It's called the Scout. And Scout is a portable camera, and it's used for short duration traffic counts. So you can imagine taking this device, setting it up at an intersection, and collecting video data at that intersection for like a peak hour period of 6 hours throughout the day. And then you could move it to another intersection. And that's exactly how our customers use it. And what we do with the video is that we convert that video into a traffic count. So our customers capture the video, they upload the video to the cloud, and then we can convert that video into a traffic count. We've been selling this device for a number of years now, and there's about 10,000 of these devices in the world operating all the time, collecting traffic, video, and data. The next device I want to introduce you to is called Spectrum. And in contrast to Scout, Spectrum is a permanently installed device at a traffic light. And I'll show you a bit later in the presentation how this device gets installed at the traffic light. But it collects data 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. And it's kind of like a router for an intersection. And in that, there's two things that it does. One, it provides wireless connectivity to the traffic light. The second one is that it collects data. at the traffic light. And so what kinds of data does it collect? Well, you can imagine the transition from a red light to a green light. Well, Spectrum can collect that data at the traffic light. Other things like a pedestrian hitting the pedestrian call button, that's captured by Spectrum. And even vehicles driving through the intersection, that's also captured by Spectrum. The data that's generated by these two devices is how we derived our 236 trillion number. We did it through some fancy math. But the key here is that, so data is important, but what's even more important is the analysis that goes on top of the data to really extract value from that data set. So what kinds of data do we have? So the Scout device, on average, collects between 12 and 20,000 hours of video per week. Last year, October 27th, we had our biggest day ever with 10,000 hours in one day. And our total amount of video we have in our system is about 2.4 million hours of video. From 2005 to 2015, we collected 250,000 traffic counts or traffic studies, and last year we collected 85,000 traffic studies. So you can see that really our data set is growing exponentially, and the two big buckets of data we have are one in the video, so 2.4 million hours of video and growing, and then the actual traffic counts. So as I mentioned, I was going to show a picture of how Spectrum gets installed. So at every traffic light, you'll see a big gray box, and this is called a traffic cabinet. And at a traffic cabinet, the traffic cabinet does two things. One, it powers the traffic lights, and the second one is it controls the traffic lights. So it tells the traffic light when to turn green, when to turn red, when to turn yellow. So you can see the little white box there outlines the Spectrum device. It gets installed right into the traffic cabinet. There's a little antenna that sits on the top of the traffic cabinet, and it provides the wireless connectivity, and it collects data. And so how much data does Spectrum collect? Well, we roughed it out. On average, there's 1.2 events, traffic events per second per traffic signal. So for a city the size of Waterloo, the region of Waterloo, that has about 500 traffic lights or traffic signals, there's about 20 billion events that happen every year. And there are roughly 350,000 traffic lights in North America, which gives us a very, very big number. It's greater than 13 trillion traffic events that occur every year in North America. And these are events that Miovision is unlocking, capturing, and storing over time. So I just want to pause here for a second just to sort of summarize our discussion so far. Clearly, Miovision has a ton of traffic data. Our data set's growing exponentially. And the data is being generated by two main devices, the Scout unit and the Spectrum unit, which I outlined or described. And so we've recognized the value of the data, that it can be used to solve some of the more interesting infrastructure and city challenges. It really in the field of smart cities and smart traffic. And so next, I'd like to talk about some of the projects that we are actively working on and engaged with. And so the first one is something called conflict analysis. And in the traffic engineering world, conflict analysis is the study of accidents. So accidents between vehicles, pedestrians, bicyclists. And the interesting thing is that in order to study a conflict or an accident, an accident actually has to happen. So the current paradigm is, well, an accident just happened, let's go and look at what happened. But the interesting thing is, so Miovision enables a new kind of conflict analysis where researchers can look at what they call near collisions. So with video, with the 2.4 million hours of video, we as Miovision or researchers, in this case it's researchers at the U of T, can look at video and study the near collisions that happen between pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. And so they can study those near collisions and use that understanding to make roadways safer. The next project that we are actively engaged with is with freight flow in cities. So moving people and goods throughout a city are key to a well-functioning traffic network. So there's changes happening with freight flow in cities. E-commerce is on the rise, so lots of packages or lots more packages getting delivered all the time. Just-in-time delivery is getting more and more important. So if cities can have a better understanding of the freight flows within the city, they can help move those goods faster, quicker, more efficiently throughout the city. And they can do so with better planning and better policy decisions. So Miovision's working with the Transportation Research Board, which is a federal agency in the United States, and a management consulting firm called CPCS Transcom to understand freight flows within cities. And Miovision is contributing data from both the Scout and Spectrum devices in order to help further that research. The third project that I'd like to talk to you guys about, and this is a project that's very relevant to the work that ODX is doing, is on open traffic data. So Miovision has partnered with the World Bank and a number of ride-sharing companies to create a repository of traffic data, or open traffic data. And the partnership is really around encouraging two-way data sharing between companies and transportation agencies. So you can imagine if public agencies can share data with private companies and vice versa, then everybody can benefit. And that's sort of the goal of this open traffic data repository. So these are three projects that Miovision Labs is actively engaged with, using the data set that Miovision has created and stored. There's a bunch of other areas of research that Miovision Labs is working on, specifically using the data set that we have. The first is with citizen engagement. So what do I mean by citizen engagement with respect to traffic? So you can imagine that if we can get better two-way communication between citizens or drivers and the traffic network itself, we can improve traffic efficiency. So one example that comes to mind is if you can time the traffic signals in a specific roadway or corridor in a city, but no one really knows about that, then it's kind of useless. So it would be great if citizens could engage with the traffic light infrastructure, and then the traffic light infrastructure could know what citizens themselves are doing within the traffic network. The other one, or another one that we're working on, is on predictive traffic modeling. So we are collecting a huge repository of historical traffic data. So what if we could create a traffic model that would allow us to predict where congestion or traffic accidents would occur even before they happen? That would be an awesome thing, and something that we are working on. Another area of research is on greenhouse gas reduction strategies. So almost half, so 50% of the greenhouse gases that are emitted in the Waterloo region come from the vehicular traffic. So one of the things that Miovision is exploring is how we can make traffic networks more efficient and support multimodal transportation initiatives. So biking, public transit, as methods of reducing our greenhouse gas footprint. And lastly, another interesting one, so vehicle to infrastructure. So wouldn't it be great if the car that you purchased today or in the future would be able to talk directly to the traffic lights, so your vehicle would actually understand the traffic light infrastructure. And so that's another thing that Miovision is working on, is how do we get that communication between the traffic light and the vehicle itself. So I want to leave you guys with a final thought here on critical success factors. So for Miovision, we realized early on, and especially as we started thinking about this Miovision Labs initiative, is what are the things that can make this a success for us and the city, the transportation agency, the driver. The first is open data. Open data is critical to being able to freely share the data that we're collecting, making it open and accessible. And the second one is collaboration among multiple stakeholders. So in the 3 projects that I outlined for you earlier, so conflict analysis, freight flows, and open traffic data, all 3 of those, there are multiple stakeholders. Miovision is just one of the stakeholders, and what we're doing is contributing data, but there's multiple stakeholders as part of all of those projects. And to really get good, successful outcomes, collaboration among multiple stakeholders is critical, and key to that is having open and accessible data sets to work from. So thank you all for listening to my presentation today. As I understand, there's going to be some questions, and again, I apologize for the technical difficulties that we experienced earlier. So Kelsey, I'll stop sharing my screen, okay, if that's okay.
Yep, that's fine.
And happy to take questions.
Okay, sure. So we have one question here, and I just wanted to point out to the rest of the audience, if you have a question for Tony, just put it underneath the questions and answers tab, and I'll get to it in just a second. So the first question is from Michael. He asks, how is the Scout secured for safety and security purposes?
Yeah, great question. So it's actually not that sophisticated. It's really just a strap with a locking mechanism. It's nothing really, really high tech. It's a pretty low tech solution, but it works. We don't really have a problem with thefts of the Scout devices, as much as you would think you would have with setting the device up and leaving it. Theft is not a huge issue for us. Theft or tampering.
Okay, and that's actually the only question that everyone had, so you must have had a pretty clear and concise presentation. Oh, we just got one. Is Open Data Initiative live? Can you share links?
It is not currently live, but I can share. So we've actually done a couple different things. The Open Data Initiative that I talked about today with the World Bank, that is not sort of accessible publicly, but we do have an API that we've built to help cities share their data, and I would be happy to share that link with you.
Great. And there's a couple more questions here. Are you only providing open data, or are you also using open data to improve your models?
So that's a great question. We are currently actually only using our own data sets. So we're consuming the data sets that we create through Scout and Spectrum. We are not currently using any open data sets, but that's not something that we're going to continue. We know we will have to use other open data sets, and one that comes to mind immediately is weather. So weather is an important part of traffic and understanding traffic conditions, and weather is an open data set. Another one that comes to mind is transit. So understanding, transit flows within the city is another data set that we would love to have access to.
Awesome. What are the most significant changes you see coming to how cities function in the near future?
Great question. So for us, our goal is to get Spectrum devices installed at traffic lights everywhere. And the key thing that will enable is a couple things. One is better optimized traffic lights. So that's a real pain in the butt for everyone, especially the drivers. And so for us, it would be great if we could get these things installed in all kinds of traffic lights and then retime the traffic lights so that they can respond to changing traffic conditions. The other one is on the transit side. So cities have this implemented, some do, some don't, but it's transit priority. And so what transit priority is that it allows buses and other forms of transit priority through the traffic network. So I think those two things are going to be more ubiquitous than they are currently. Those are the two big changes that I think are coming.
And I think the last question here is, can you share more information about technical challenges behind managing these huge data sets, maybe in a blog post?
Yeah, great question. So I did a presentation about a month or two ago to the Big Data peer-to-peer group in town, and there I talked about some of the technical challenges, but also the technical architecture and the infrastructure that we use. And I would happy to share some of those slides with you guys.
That's great. A couple more questions. How does a Spectrum device capture the traffic events count data? Is there cameras mounted remotely from the traffic cabinet?
So yes, there are cameras that can be added to the Spectrum device to capture video and traffic counts. The other way that vehicle counts are identified is through, they call it MAC address identification. So as drivers are driving through a traffic light, they have their cell phones on, and their cell phones or their vehicles have Wi-Fi enabled. And so the Spectrum device can pick up that Wi-Fi signal and identify it as a person or a vehicle traveling through the traffic light. So that's the way that those are the two methods that we can collect vehicle count data.
And another question, how are you planning for a self-driving future?
Yeah, that's a great question. So self-driving future is, I think, a real opportunity for Miovision. As I mentioned in the last, or the second to last slide, vehicle to infrastructure is it's a bit of an emerging field right now in traffic and transportation engineering. And you can imagine a future where the autonomous vehicle talks directly to the traffic light, and there's no need for a driver to ever be involved in that communication. And the value there is that the vehicle can really orient itself and its path and its position and what have you to the traffic network. So I think there's a real opportunity for Miovision with the self-driving future, and we're positioning ourselves to be a leader there.
That's awesome.
Not from the vehicle side, but from the infrastructure side.
Yeah. Lots of questions here. In your deployments of Scout and Spectrum, what percentage of your customer has really used the data to improve traffic as of now?
So I would say that 100% of our customers and the data they use and collect is being used to improve the traffic network, because you're not really going out and collecting traffic data unless you want to make a change for the better. So some of the ways that our customers use traffic data are for signal retimings. So if they want to do, a retiming of a corridor in a city, they've got to go out and collect traffic data. The other way they use traffic data is for redevelopments. So say you want to build a new Walmart in town. Well, that new Walmart is going to have a tremendous impact on the traffic in the area around the Walmart. So traffic engineers really have to go out and collect a whole bunch of data to say, okay, well, what is the impact going to be by that Walmart moving to town? So yeah, I mean, we at Miovision, one of our weaknesses, to be honest, is we don't have a view to directly see what the impact is. So we don't 100% know what the traffic data is being used for, but we know that traffic engineers use traffic data for a number of specific reasons, all with the end goal of improving the transportation network.
Awesome. And the last question here is, are the new devices built to withstand weather conditions, or is data only captured during clear days?
So it is an all-weather device, but the nice thing with specifically with Spectrum, it sits within the traffic cabinet. So it doesn't get rained on, it doesn't get snowed on. It does get cold, but it's inside the traffic cabinet. The Scout device is an outdoor ruggedized piece of equipment that gets moved around and thrown around on trucks and all kinds of crazy stuff. So it's a rugged device. But to answer the question, they will operate under the conditions that are required.
And we have another question here. As vehicles become more and more electric, how do you see the traffic infrastructure adjusting to support that?
Yeah, so another great question. So I think I think the future is electric autonomous vehicles. You know, some people would agree, some people would disagree, but my view is that the future of traffic is electric and it's autonomous. And to the previous question about autonomous vehicles, how does Miovision fit in with autonomous vehicles? Well, we see ourselves as being a key piece of the infrastructure that can support autonomous vehicles.
Lots of great questions. I'm really impressed with these questions that have been coming up. I think that's all the questions that are coming in for now. So I think what I'll do is I'll wrap up with some closing slides, but I'll give some information to the audience about how they can reach out to you if they have more questions.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just going to mute you for now and screen share my screen again. All right. So again, you're going to get to see all my notes. Okay. So thank you so much, Tony, for joining us and for all of your amazing questions from the audience. That was an awesome presentation. If you have more questions for ODX, you can tweet to us at CODX, or if you want to ask Tony some more questions about their devices, you can tweet to Miovision at Miovision. As I mentioned earlier, I'm going to be sending out a quick survey that I'd like you guys to fill out just to give us some feedback on how we put together this webinar so we can make March's webinar even better. And once I get your feedback, I'll send you the link to the archive so you can rewatch it. I know a few of you had some issues with audio, so it might be worthwhile just taking a quick rewatch of the archive. And before we go, I wanted to quickly mention that if you're interested to stay up to date with the latest open data and open government news across Canada, the US and internationally, you should sign up for our favorite newsletter besides our own, Richard Pietro's Open Government Digest. It goes out every 2 weeks. It's awesome. So I'm just going to paste the link if I can. in the chat box here. Looks like people aren't seeing my slides. So you know what? I'm just gonna let you see my face and hear me speak. So all right. So I just pasted the link to the Open Government Digest newsletter if you're interested to sign up. We faithfully read Richard's newsletter, and we often tweet about the events and stuff that he promotes there. Coming up in March, we have another webinar with Milieu. Lee Michael's joining us to bring our 6th webinar. And as I said earlier, we're kind of changing things up a bit with the way we run our webinars in the future when we open up the Data Hub, ODX's new home in the spring. So this webinar coming up will be our last series of the way we do things now. And then the one after that will be a bit of a change. So stay tuned for lots of awesome news coming your way. And we'll definitely send out information on how you can sign up for the webinar with Milieu. Milieu is dedicated to democracy and data-driven city building. So with Milieu, users can explore planning and development applications and witness public participation in real time. And Milieu is deployed citywide as part of the Guelph Civic Accelerator. So we're really excited to have him next month. And that's all I have for today. So if you have any questions for us, like I said, just reach out to us on Twitter. And the same with Miovision, you can reach out to Tony at Miovision on Twitter. Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your short work week after a long weekend. Thanks, Tony.